Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ainsley again. So, in my last video, I introduced myself and just gave a brief overview of who I am. This channel is going to be solely about trucking and the ins and outs as I experience it, to hopefully give you some insight before you make a decision as to whether or not you want to get into the trucking industry. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 6 other things. So, now that you've gotten your CDL, are you going to stay with the company that helped you to get that CDL, depending on the circumstance? Now, for me, as you know, if you've watched my last video, I got my CDL through CR England Premier Truck Driving School. Now, I stayed with them for a certain time. The length of time that I stayed with them, I'm going to say it was probably about 3 months. And also, just to let you know, if you go through these mega carriers to get your CDL, please get all the information that you can about getting your CDL with them, because in this case I had to stay with them for about a year to pay off the debt of actually getting a CDL with them. Now, as I said a while ago, I did not stay with them for the full length, all right, because I felt that it was not in my best interest to stay with them, because I was not getting money paid well enough, actually. And I know I just started and I just got my CDL, etc. And also be prepared that when you just get your CDL, you're not going to get as much. I know that now, being over a year in the industry. Now, as I've said in my last video, it's good for you to have some sort of savings so that you can actually get by. And the sun is crazy right now. So you can get by and sustain yourself until the income comes. All right, so the next thing that I want to talk about is that when you get into the trucking industry, there are a couple of avenues that you can take. You can drive solo, which is just, as the name implies, you're driving by yourself, or you can drive with a team member. Now, initially getting training and such like that, you will have to drive with a trainer. Now, you can get a certain kind of trainer. You have female trainers, of course. You have male trainers, you have smokers, and you have non-smokers. Now, a lot of students that I went to school with, they, even though they're non-smokers, they wanted to just get on the road very quickly. So they actually opted to get a smoker trainer, which because I'm not a smoker, I didn't want to do that, because I hate the smell of smoke on my clothes and such like that. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Additionally to that, say for instance, if you wanted to go into teaming, you're driving with another person. Now, some of the pointers that I can give you with that, I would say you want to team with somebody that you know, and you know them very well, meaning that you know how they are, because you're going to be confined to a small space. And to be quite honest, you have to be on the same page with that person generally all the time, because you're going to be kind of like living together for the next for weeks on end. So you guys have to properly pre-trip and plan your brakes, because being in a team, the truck is constantly running, and you're looking at covering 4,000 to 6,000 miles a week. So when you're finished driving and you put your status in sleeper berth, that's also another thing that you will have to do. You have to change your status for whatever you're doing, so that you're in compliance. So when you're finished driving and on sleeper berth, which is basically saying that you are now going in bed to take your 10-hour break, and I'll explain that at a later time for you. Your team member is going to be driving, so that's something to bear in mind when it comes on to teaming. So if that's something that you want to do, then that's an option. Teams usually make more money than solo drivers, so that's usually the alluring factor when it comes on to that. Okay. All right, so now that you've decided what avenue you wanted to go with, whether it's teaming or solo, the next thing is perfecting your craft. I call this perfecting your craft because I would say 99% of the time you're going to be going in forward. You're going to be driving. So the thing that I consider perfecting your craft is a few factors, and I'll just sum both of these into one. One, backing. That is perhaps one of the sore points in the trucking industry, because this truck and trailer is over 70 foot long, so you have to really be very skilled and pay attention in school when it comes on to backing, so that you understand the way that the trailer swings when you turn it to the right or when you turn it to the left. Now for me, I'm not saying backing wasn't a problem. In general, in my personal life, driving my car, I always back into a parking spot. That's just something that I practice. So when it comes on to trucking, it was not foreign for me to actually just back it up, but it took practice. Now, for instance, if I stop at a truck stop or anything like that, a lot of times, sometimes you will find a spot that you can actually just pull right into, and that's fine. If you're uneasy with backing, I would suggest to practice whenever you can, but also exercise caution and be safe. There is an acronym in the trucking industry. It's called GOAL, GOAL, and what that means, it means get out and look. So if you're not sure, you should get out and look and make sure that you are not hitting anything. Now, one of the most crucial things I believe in the trucking industry is looking over your machine to make sure that everything is running the way that it should be. Now, this is called pre-trip, and you will also be exposed to this prior to getting your CDL, because the company that you've chosen to get your CDL through, they will drill it in your mind to say pre-trip. Make sure that you learn the pre-trip, because this is a 40-ton machine, okay? And if something happens that you could have avoided before, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So it's very crucial to pre-trip and just look over it. I know some days you may not feel like it, you just want to get in and drive, but it's really important. I know when I was actually with the old company and I was going over defensive driving courses, one of the things that really shook me is the fact that when you're pre-tripping, like, you're forgetting to look, particularly the fifth wheel, to make sure that it is not disengaged. So I know every time I pre-trip, that's something that I look into all the time to make sure that it's not disengaged, because some people may, I don't know if I want to say they hold some sort of grudge against the company that you're driving for or whatever. It can happen, and they can just disengage it, and you're thinking that everything is fine, and you're going down the street, and then you make a left, and then your trailer goes right. Then, as they put it, you become an untouchable, and that's something to avoid. All right, so finally, the one thing that I wanted to wrap up this video with is learning to drive long miles Now, before getting into trucking for myself, driving 500 miles would be it would be something that I never imagined that I would do. It would be a very impossible task, so to speak. But as I learn to drive these trucks, it becomes easier. I know the first time I went with my trainer, I did 500 miles that day, and it really didn't seem much, because now I started to break down my hours, so to speak. I know if I'm driving 500 miles, I will probably break it up into two, drive 250 and then take a break and then drive the rest. So that's something that you will also learn to do. Some people, they can just drive 6 hours straight without taking a break. To me, that's killing yourself, and I don't want to overdo it. So that's something that you should be aware of. Just driving long hours and breaking up your time so that it's more manageable for you, and also bearing in mind getting the load to the shipper as well. So as you progress, you will learn how to break things up in terms of the miles, and get to the consignee in time. All right guys, that's all I have for this week's video. If there's anything that I may have missed, you can feel free to comment down below. Subscribe to the channel so that you may be aware when I drop new content. Hit that notification bell as well, and I'll see you in the next one.